They all collectively went to the Los Angeles Adult Protective Services office and filed an official complaint of mental and financial abuse of a senior citizen. The city of Los Angeles sent an investigator out as neither of the women were home. A member of the staff informed Sidney, who instructed the staffer not to allow access, and told the inspector that he should make an appointment. When the inspector came back, he was faced with a phalanx of doctors, the women, and lawyers, including Robert Shapiro of O.J. Simpson fame. The inspector only spoke to the lawyers and the women and not the nurses or the house staff, and then left without filing a complaint. However, ancillary damage was done, not to Sumner, not to the will, or to the cash withdrawals, but to the women's psyche. The close call put psychological pressure on them, resulting in fear of what Shari might do to them once Sumner had passed. In order to shape the narrative and to place a narrative in the public record to protect the will, just in case Shari challenged it post-mortem, they decided to sit down for a full interview with William D. Cohan, a reporter for Vanity Fair, though Viacom spokesperson advised against it. But the women hired their own PR representative who overruled Viacom's communication executive. They sat for the interview and photo shoot in luxury evening gowns. The entire piece was a nightmare, and all the ammunition Shari needed. There's an old saying, don't add insult to injury. Shari agrees. She believes in adding more injury to injury. Post the Vanity Fair interview, the media mogul requested to see the interview. His Viacom CEO, Philip Dowman, brought it to him. He was not pleased. It opened the door for Shari's children, Sumner's grandchildren, to visit more frequently and dote on their beloved grandpa, who they nicknamed as children Grumpy. How could he not love it? Shari now had an in. Shari then hired a private investigator to investigate both girlfriends. Within 2 weeks, Shari found what she needed, namely that Sidney, the more beloved girlfriend, who still had a regular, intimate relationship with Sumner and had deeper relationships with the house staff, had a secret boyfriend, a 49-year-old former actor who lived in Arizona. They regularly traded text messages about Sumner dying and how everyone was trying to come in between her and the inheritance, how much work she had to do to maintain her position, and how he was always crying. Shari got her hands on the texts and intimate photos, and the damage was done. One of Sumner's grandchildren delivered them to Sumner and Philip Dowman, the Viacom CEO and family confidant. Sumner and Dowman spoke and informed Sidney that she was dismissed from the home. One down, one to go. Manuela had never been particularly close to the house staff or even very nice. Almost immediately, she called the estate attorney and had her allowance in the will changed from $15 million to $50. The staff brought this to Sumner's attention and asked him about it. He was upset. Then Shari used the allegations of the Vanity Fair article as grounds to sue Manuela. Combine this with the fact that Shari and her grandchildren introduced Sumner to a new companion who just so happened to be a former Ford model. She was in effect displacing one of Manuela's primary duties, to comfort Redstone. Philip Dowman, who was like a son to Sumner Redstone, was also informed of the will changes and the way Manuela, who Sidney Herzog had nicknamed the Pitbull in her text with her boyfriend, was treating Redstones. Armed with a lawsuit filed against Manuela, Shari standing as 20% owner of National Amusements, the holding company for CBS and Viacom, and the allegations by the House staff, Dowman saw the writing on the wall. There was no way Manuela was going to beat Shari, a lawyer and a centie millionaire, in court. Manuela was angling for tens of millions. Shari already had hundreds of millions. Dowman preempted Shari and convinced Redstone to allow him to be granted power of attorney for medical decisions. One day after returning from a morning run, Manuela was informed that she was not going to be allowed to re-enter the house. 2-0 for Shari. Next, Dowman. Shari had. It's hard to keep up with the news these days, but not anymore. Introducing you to paulineslist.org. That's paulineslist.org, your digital newsstand. Just like a newsstand, at paulineslist.org, you can see all of your publications in one place. And just like the newsstand, you can flip through all of the headlines of all of today's articles in an easy-to-manage format. On top of that, you can save the articles you want to read for later. And on top of that, we do not use artificial intelligence to tell you what you want. We let you decide for yourself. Right now, we have some of the top financial publications out, but we're adding new publications all the time. So if you're serious about knowing, if you're serious about being a citizen, if being ignorant is your pet peeve, check out paulineslist.org. That's paulineslist.org. Now regained access to the house and to her father. She had assessed the terrain. Dowman was the easier target. Viacom and Paramount, along with it, hadn't been doing well financially. The company stock was down 53%, and after a conference call with investors on one day, fell an additional 21%. Shari and the industry had made an assessment of Dowman. Fundamentally, he was a lawyer, a deal maker, but he was not a creator. He did not understand content because he had never been in the content business. He was a deal maker. As Shari said in an interview, basically, it was really a lot about financial engineering and stock buybacks, and not about believing the people who created the content, not about supporting the people who created content, not creating a culture of creating content. The industry and Wall Street concurred. Shari pointed out the failing balance sheet, the stock price, the financially worsening outlook of Viacom under Dowman, but that wasn't enough for Sumner. It wouldn't be that easy. Sumner's crowning achievement was in acquiring Paramount Pictures, and Dowman, the lawyer, the deal maker, was instrumental to that. That is the light in which Sumner saw Dowman. He was the handmaiden of Sumner's brass ring, Paramount, so there was deep affection for Dowman. Sumner was even asked once by a reporter in a conversation about succession, did Philip promise he wouldn't break up Viacom and Paramount? Sumner's response was, of course he wouldn't break up the company. He didn't have to promise. So under immense pressure from the board and Wall Street to show a return on investment with Viacom, when Dowman proposed to Sumner in front of Shari to sell off a piece of Paramount Pictures, Sumner had had enough. He removed Dowman as chairman of the board from Viacom. Shari then followed up by removing all the members of the board who supported him. Finally, Les Moonves. Shari, now back in her father's good graces and holding the reins at Viacom, revisited a conclusion that she came to long ago. Simply, that splitting Viacom and CBS had been a mistake, and they should put them back together for one simple reason. The collective companies were too small individually. Examining their competition, she appeared to be correct. Disney Corporation is worth $183 billion. Netflix is $141 billion. Viacom was a $30 billion business at the time. Tiny in comparison. Shari wanted to combine the two entities, but Les Moonves stood in her way. And Les Moonves was no Philip Dowman. Moonves was not only respected and a great executive, but he was a creator himself. Remember Friends? Moonves. The show ER? Moonves. Survivor? Moonves. Les Moonves knew how to deliver hits and financial results. But Shari's view was that Viacom was too small, and the only way out was to get bigger. And the only way to get bigger was to combine the companies. Moonves stood in the way of that. First, he wanted no part of the terrible Viacom balance sheet. Second, he was running his own ship. Why would he want to give up the captain's chair? Third, he had the board and Wall Street's support. If you ran CBS, why would you want to take your all-star team and combine it with the Bad News Bears? Moonves had a point, but Moonves also had a past. And something no one expected was about to upend everything. The Me Too movement was about to explode. CBS, like many media corporations, had a terrible culture of sexual harassment. CBS was no exception. And Moonves had a history personally. So when a New Yorker magazine article came out and targeted the corporate culture of CBS, and Moonves in particular, all of his allies ran for cover. And it left Shari Redstone as the last woman standing. She dispatched with Moonves quickly. What's next for Redstone? Shari Redstone is now firmly ensconced at the pinnacle of national amusements, which is still a holding company for Viacom or the newly named Paramount Global. However, Moonves and Wall Street may have been right. Even though Viacom and CBS were eventually combined, the market share of Viacom is now half of what it was before the combination. $15 billion. Half of what it was when she took it over. While Walt Disney and Netflix are both 10 times their size. Even Fox Corporation, another family-run entity, is 2 times their size. Redstone will have to bulk up their digital footprint and find a way to reignite their business or catch up. But at least now she's in a position to call the shots as the biggest, baddest woman in media. She has proven to truly be her father's daughter. Signing off. Peace. Hey, if you like this video, please smash that like button and hit subscribe. We would love to see you again. So take it easy. Peace.